Happy Purim. This is Simon Jacobson speaking to you on this beautiful holiday of Purim, a day of celebration. And I'm here to speak about holy madness. It makes me smile just to say that, holy madness. Because whenever we hear the word madness or mad, we don't usually associate it with anything very positive. You know, madness is about being crazy, or what once upon a time ago psychologists would call mad. Today we have different names for it, but it's definitely a state of not normalcy. However, as we shall discuss, there's holy madness and there's unholy madness. So on Purim, we honor the day, we celebrate the day with great joy, unbridled joy, the most joyous day of the year, to the point that it says in the Talmud that there's a mitzvah to get intoxicated to the point yada, to the point where beyond knowledge, we're beyond discernment and beyond understanding the difference between blessed be Mordechai and cursed be Haman, which itself is a very bizarre and odd statement. First of all, intoxication is not necessarily a great blessing. Clearly there's something here that's deeper, as we shall discuss, a holy form of madness. But what is the idea of yada, to the point that you don't know? Das, knowledge, to know and to understand things, is a great virtue. That's what makes human beings human beings. We actually say it in the morning, the one who gives understanding and discernment to the rooster, who knows when to crow in the morning. The call of the rooster, is it crow or call? The crow or the call of the rooster in the morning, exactly when dawn breaks. So discernment, clarity, understanding, knowledge is considered a great virtue. And here suddenly on the day of Purim we say yada, to the point yada, till you cannot discern, till you cannot know. When a person is lacking knowledge, or in a state of yada, not knowing, that's not considered necessarily a great virtue. That's the opposite of virtue. And yet that's what the statement is made on Purim, to the point that it's a mitzvah. We need to understand why. So there are many ways to go and address this issue. We talk about sanity, insanity. What exactly is sanity? What is consciousness, for that matter? So most of us think of consciousness as a quality, as I said, as a virtue, where you're conscious of what is going on around you. You're aware. But is that really the ultimate experience of reality, our awareness or our consciousness of it? Think about it this way. The things that are most powerful in our experiences, we're not even conscious of while they're happening. When you're really immersed in an intimate experience, you become one with the experience, where there's no division and no duality between subject and object. Like a fish in water, completely immersed. You ever get involved in a project or something that you're really involved in? You could spend an entire night not sleeping, not eating, not even realizing, because you're so involved in it, you're not even conscious that you're aware and of that involvement. As soon as you step back and are conscious of it, you're already then becoming an observer. You no longer are bonded, and no longer that type of seamlessness with an experience. So one has to wonder, when we say conscious and we are aware of things, what that means exactly. Now, Purim, we all know, began with a very dangerous and a very threatening situation. A threatening situation in Persia of old. Over 2,400 years ago, there was the decree that Haman convinced Acheive, who then was the superpower. He was the king of the superpower of Persia, the Persian Empire, that controlled as the Megillah, the Purim Megillah that we read tonight and tomorrow again, begins, that he's governed over 127 countries. So all the Jews were there. And Haman became incited against Mordechai, which we shall discuss hopefully soon, and against the Jewish people, and he convinced Acheive to pass a decree, a law, stating that the Jews on that day and a certain day would all be annihilated. There was an actual Holocaust. In this case, they actually controlled, as opposed to Nazi Europe, the entire population of the world, at least of that part of the world, and definitely of the entire population of the Jewish people. And miraculously, through a series of events that seem very natural, but when you connect the dots, Esther, the Queen Esther, happened to be in the right place, the story gets turned around. And I'm using that word intentionally, transformed. V'napachu. The Megillah says it twice, the Purim story tells it to V'napachu. Hachidesh asher nepach lehem. Miyogen l'simcha. And one that transformed, in Hebrew, hapech, means upside down, inside out, transformed, not just eliminated. The dark became light. The pain and sorrow became joy and celebration. And such a joy that comes from darkness is a joy that is unbridled, unlimited. And hence the celebration of Purim. But what is it, as I asked before, what is it about Purim that makes it unique? That this is a celebration that goes beyond knowledge. So going back to what I was discussing, the question is, what is knowledge? What is awareness? So clearly awareness definitely plays a role and has value. But ultimately, the deepest experiences, one could argue, you're not even aware of the experience while you're having it. Afterwards, you can say, I'm aware, this is what I've learned, this is how I give you direction. But it's a direction to a directionless world. When you're immersed in a place where you should be, one could argue that awareness actually undermines the situation. Imagine a super athlete, or a person, God forbid, in a dangerous situation in a war. If they start becoming too aware of their moves, they may die. They will fail. The key thing is their training led them to a point that when they're in that type of crisis or in that type of challenge, there's a certain something that triggers a deeper sense of experience that's best not to be an observer and wondering and analyzing as an outsider, where you become one with the experience. So actually the word das that we say here, to the point that you cannot discern between good and evil, between dark and light, the word das, the first time the Torah uses it, is actually in the Bible, in the beginning. The story of the Garden of Eden. And you shall not eat from the tree of what? Of das, Eitz HaDas. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Another place where das is used, a little later. And Adam knew Eve. Knowledge, Yoda, refers to intimate relations. So here we have the first usages of the word das. Now the tree of knowledge is not of good and evil was actually meant not to be eaten from, not to be experienced. The tree of life, yes, but not the tree of knowledge. Now why would God not want man and women to have knowledge? The human race to have knowledge, which is exactly what the serpent argued. Because what God wanted them is to have the experience. The experience that not only do you know it, but you become one with it. And that's the knowledge that comes from intimacy. When you say two people bond as one, it's not about them knowing, I know you, but you become like one flesh, where it becomes, you and the experience become one. The subject and the object become one. With the tree of knowledge, however, what happened was, by eating from it, they wanted it. They want to gain knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. Then what happens is, then suddenly you become stripped and divorced from your source, and the subject and object divided into two. So we live in a world that we call the world of sanity. Sanity, frankly, is limited reality. I've discussed this many times, and it's always fascinating to me. When I first read it, I think it was in a book called Storming Heavens, America's Romance with LSD. And let me just begin as a major disclaimer. This is by no means any type of condoning. On the contrary, drug use is considered to be a foreign fire. And as we shall discuss, using any substance to achieve a high is considered almost a form of idolatry. Not in the technical sense of it, but meaning that you don't generate it from within. But yet, Dr. Hoffman, Albert Hoffman, who passed away a few years ago, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, doing his experiments, looking for a drug to induce madness. He wanted to be able to have a drug that psychologists could use to relate to their so-called mad patients. As I said, today we don't call them mad. And he experimented. This was in Switzerland, in the pharmaceutical laboratories in Switzerland. And because he was experimenting on himself, of course, he had no people he could test it on except himself. So he had everywhere meticulously, he left around notes and tape recorders. This was in the late 40s, I believe, early 50s, where he would be able to document, should the drug begin to affect him, he would be able to document what is going on, because he never knew where maybe he wouldn't be able to return. Anyway, one day, the story goes, by lunchtime, approximately lunchtime, so Dr. Hoffman was doing one of his tests, and he had injected himself or ingested some chemical, and on his way home for lunch, he was riding on a bicycle in a meadow where there was beautiful, like a long path with hedges on both sides. And Dr. Hoffman basically, as he was riding, and this he began to document because suddenly he felt some change of sensation. And what happened was he felt his bicycle almost beginning to float, and then beginning to rise. Then he saw the hedges on both sides of the path began to move and vibrate and pulsate. A throbbing sensation. And then he saw the clouds in the sky and all the colors beginning to move about, and it became like this fascinating experience, which would later be documented as the first psychedelic experience through this the drug that he had developed called LSD. And he got home and he continued either speaking or writing notes just to document what was going on, because he felt he was going mad. Well, he fell asleep. At the end of it, he did finally come out of it, came back to his regular state, remembered the experience very vividly, and now he began to try to understand it. And the theory he developed, which is fascinating because it so parallels the concept of consciousness in Kabbalah and in mysticism, the theory he developed was that consciousness, awareness, knowledge, das, not in his words but our words, is actually limited intelligence. Because what he realized was that this drug, what happened was that it opened up channels. And as the channels opened up, a stream of consciousness entered, and he was able to see that which the eyes usually blinded to. He was able to sense a certain integral unity in a field of energy around him. These are not the words he uses, but essentially his idea is that the mind functions like a reservoir of water, and for an intelligence, conscious intelligence, is like a faucet, a valve that controls the flow, that it should enter into our consciousness drop by drop by drop. If that valve should burst, should that faucet break open, the water will come rushing in. That's a state of madness. So madness is actually unlimited consciousness. But the point, we cannot contain it, and that's why we go crazy from it. We go mad from it. So for a human mind to work, we have the chemicals that govern and control the flow. They monitor and temper the flow, so it should not just overflow all our chambers, all our dimensions of the mind. And therefore, consciousness actually works like this, that the conscious mind that you're aware of is just a tip of the iceberg of a much bigger picture, which we're not aware of, the unconscious. I don't remember the exact explanation he gave, but that was the gist of it. What's fascinating that this is just a small little taste of a major concept, beginning in this book of the Zohar, the classic work written 2,000 years ago, authored by the Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and later the Arizal in the book called acheive, Tree of Life, in the Kabbalistic works that were written by his student Rabbi Chaim Vital in the 16th century, talk about the koyach hamaskil, the power to conceive, the power to conceive. Sometimes the words in Aramaic, moiches timah, the hidden mind. And the hidden mind is a state of unconsciousness, but that's where intelligence begins to be born. The genesis of intelligence. Now we have no connection there except the drops of wisdom, and I specifically say drop, like a flash, a spark that comes from a much larger flame. Or if they're using the analogy of water, a reservoir of water, which is giving us these drops. And these drops, as they enter into our consciousness, become what we call discernment, clarity, understanding. So though that type of clarity is a blessing, because it's better than not to have clarity. However, let's not ever deceive ourselves into thinking that is the entire picture, our understanding of things. There is a much bigger picture that you need to, in a way, open the channels in a natural way that allows that higher consciousness to enter. The challenge is, how do we do that in a way that we do not become annihilated, that does not overwhelm us, that can be contained. And Purim is that experience. So all year round, the structures of existence have to be respected, in the sense where in those structures we try to bring that which is beyond structure. But one day in the year, Purim, and similarly Yom Kippur, and the Yom Kippur, the Tikkun Zar, which is a section of the Zar, says, is like Purim. Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim, like Purim in Hebrew. Kippurim means similar to Purim. This one day on Purim has the power to go into a place that's the unconscious. And that's the Adala Yada, to the point that you cannot discern between darkness and light. Not because, God forbid, you see darkness as light, or that you can experience darkness and without any compromise. Absolutely not. Darkness and light remains. Good and evil always remains. But you're able to go to a place that is beyond the discernment of it. A place where you can be in the experience without standing as an outsider watching. You can enter into the unconscious, which is why Purim and Yom Kippur are distinguished by what's called a girl. A girl is throwing lots. On Yom Kippur they throw lots in order to determine which animal will serve as an offering for atonement. And on Purim the lots were thrown by Haman, the negative form of lots, to choose a day which he would annihilate the Jews. So both are done in a way that is so-called connected to that which is above and beyond logic. But the tikkun, the repair of that, is the celebration that's also beyond structure. And that's a celebration of Purim. But let's take this a step further. I'd like to read to you, or quote to you, a section from the Talmud. The Talmud has an interesting story which captures this idea in a very beautiful way. The holy madness. The Talmud in the tractate of Ketubot, 17a, if you want to look it up, says like this, that Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Eli, his custom was that he would twirl a sprig of myrtle as he danced before the bride. In a Jewish wedding ceremony, it's a mitzvah, an obligation to celebrate and make the bride and groom happy, especially the bride. So it says Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Eli, had a custom. He would twirl a sprig of myrtle, which in Hebrew is, we'll soon see the importance of it, means which is we use it myrtle hadassim, but it also could be shittim. And the Talmud goes on and says that Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak danced. He would juggle 3 twigs of myrtle. But here's what happens: it aroused controversy, because here you had these great sages dancing and juggling twigs of myrtle. It was seen like very disrespectful. So Rab Zera says, this venerable sage is embarrassing us, because he's making light of the respect due to Torah scholars through his undignified behavior. He saw this dancing, this juggling, as being undignified. But the end of the story is that Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, when he passed away, it says that a pillar of fire appeared, separating him from all those who were near him. When Rab Zera saw that, he retracted his previous remark. He realized that, on the contrary, this dancing was not only not dignified, it expressed a higher level of dignity than just normal behavior, normal respectful behavior. And the Talmud goes on and says that there are 3 versions of how he retracted his disapproval. And it's all based on this word shita. Shita can mean myrtle. It can mean folly, madness. And it can mean shita could also mean a policy, a position, an opinion. So the Talmud says the venerable sage had been well served by his sprig. So the first thing he realized, that the sprig of myrtle which he would dance with, he actually was well served by that. We see that from the flame of fire that appeared, the pillar of fire that appeared and separated him from all the other scholars. The second statement is the venerable sage has been well served by his folly. In other words, not that he didn't have to do folly. There was an act of madness here, but it was appropriate, and he was well served by it. It lifted him up above the rest. And the third is that he was well served by his policy, by his shitta. What does that mean? By his customary course of conduct. His approach to life, that's what served him well. So we see from this the idea in the Talmud of holy madness, a state of folly, a state of madness, which is actually considered a virtue. And to the point that was documented, how Rabbi Zera, how a great scholar, misunderstood. You know, we have a similar story when King David, in great celebration, was whistling and making somersaults. So Michal Bashal, the daughter of King Saul, who was herself a very distinguished, knowledgeable, scholarly woman, mocked him and said, "You're embarrassing. Look at you, making somersaults, whistling, singing in the streets." And the Tanakh documents that that he whistled and he celebrated with full intensity was actually a sign of healthy and holy madness, a madness that goes beyond the rational and the structure of things. So let's explain what this means. Bottom line is, especially on Purim, it's good to be mad. Let's start with this. It's good to be holy madness. What's the difference between holy madness and unholy madness? So let's talk about that for a moment. According to Jewish mysticism, and if you just think about it, we do not see true reality. What we see is a very limited version of reality. We see the tip of the iceberg. The Tanya says that if we were able to, our eyes were opened, and we were able to see the divine energy that vivifies and perpetually gives life to every part of existence, there would be no way for us to be able to survive. All of existence would cease to be, just like it was before it began. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is because we only see God concealed, the great symptom, the black hole that God concealed his presence. So therefore, the whole idea of our consciousness, that we are structured human beings and we go by certain rules, is really based on a limited awareness. Now let me make it very clear. Rules and boundaries and structure is exactly the way God created it. But we should never be deceived to think that all there exists is structure. As we shall discuss, the goal of Purim is not to defy structure and that's it. It's to transform structure into that which is beyond structure, to use structure to transcend structure. And we'll discuss that in a few moments some more. So the point here, however, is structure as existences and the rules that we follow is true on one level, on a macrocosmic level. But on a quantum level, everything is one field of energy. And the energies are layers and layers of things we do not see. And when you enter that place, that can be a very profound place, as we shall soon see, holy madness. Now, what is the result? Let's talk the other extreme, the result of the fact that we do not see all of reality. You know, the result is a tragic result. We're able to hurt each other. If we all felt that we were part of one organism, as the Talmud Yerushalmi says, that each of us is a part of one large organism, each of us is an organ in a large organism, is it conceivable that the right hand should hit the left hand, the right foot the left foot, because it misbehaves? If we sensed we were all part of one tree, one musical composition, each note indispensable and complementing one another, it would be impossible for us to hurt each other. So how is it possible that we do? Because we don't feel it, because we're blinded, because we experience folly, madness of unhealthy madness. What's the madness? Because rationally, a person would never put his hand in fire. Rationally, you would never hurt yourself. And yet we do so all the time, because we don't see. So we're mad. This is called shtus de klippe, shtus de l'umazeh. It's a madness from the bad side, from the negative side. It's like the Talmud says, "Ein adam evra avera elim ke nichnos by ruach shtus." A person doesn't sin unless a moment of insanity enters. Why insanity? Because he would not be able to put his hand in fire. No healthy, normal person could put their hand in fire. How is it that we can do something that's destructive? Because it's a moment of insanity. Our insanity blinds us to each other, blinds us to ourselves, blinds us to the reality of our soul's needs. And even when you know this, and even when you're aware of this, we still make the mistakes, and we repeat them. That's how mad and insane we can be. So what is the counterforce to such insanity? To just say, let's just go back to normal, that's not enough. Insanity is powerful. It creates a whole reality, and we live in an insane world where people can hurt each other. I know to most of us, that's the status quo that seems, normal. Who says that's normal? If you look at a world of little children don't see it that way at all. Children don't have that yet, that selfishness to that point, very young children. So who says that's normal? Just because everybody's used to it doesn't mean that's normal. Let's put it this way, it doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because everybody is sick, or everybody's insane, or everybody's blind, doesn't mean that it's healthy. As the Baal Shem Tov says, that there's two types of darkness. There's a darkness where it's dark, and there's haster panai, that the concealment conceals. It conceals the fact that it's concealed, to the point that you can convince yourself that darkness is light, and war is peace, and love is hate, and hate is love. So we live in a type of mad world, and knowing that is the beginning of a course. The knowledge of a problem is half its cure. So how do we counter that? How do we just open our eyes? It's not so simple. We have to do something that counters it, that has the same intensity, the other extreme. And that's why we have a day like Purim. A day where we break out in holy madness. We do things simply because they're right, even if you don't have a full logical explanation. You do it because you're completely committed, that passion and commitment to things, that is supra-rational. And we have many examples of it. When two people fall in love, and they finally decide to marry and commit to each other, is that a rational act? They don't know what's going to be the future. Things will change. There's a certain measure of super-rational. That's why I'm speaking now. Holy madness is super-rational. Unholy madness is irrational, or sub-rational. So when you say, I don't know, there are two ways you can say, I don't know. A young child, a young person just hasn't yet acquired any knowledge, and they say, I don't know, it's ignorance. But the I don't know of a wise person is not ignorance at all. It's the greatest level of wisdom. Tachlis hayediyah shalei neda. The ultimate of knowledge is to know that you don't know, or to know that which is unknowable. Again, the word is yada, lo yada, from Purim. But you can't achieve that until you first have das. Like one person who got himself intoxicated one Purim, and he was told, first you have to have das, discernment and knowledge, before you come to a place that transcends knowledge. Without knowledge, you can't transcend knowledge. So the way that we break out from the folly, the madness of unholy madness, is to say, I don't know, that comes following knowledge. As I said, when two people fall in love and they get married, yes, there's a certain measure of, they date, they get to know each other, it makes sense, but that type of absolute commitment, firm, unwavering, uncompromising commitment, unconditional commitment, that comes from an act of madness, but not madness that is ridiculous, that is reckless. It's a madness that follows. Your mind takes you to a door, and then it says, now, I've led you here. All the logic leads you here, but now to walk through the door, that requires a certain act that's super-rational. So on Purim, we experience the transformation of darkness, of the shtus de l'umazeh, the unholy madness, by transforming it through holy madness, through understanding, experiencing a higher level of unconscious or conscious that's beyond the conscious, that allows ad lo-yada, at that point going till the point of lo-yada, that you cannot discern, because you've reached that type of absolute dancing with a myrtle to the point that it generates a pillar of fire. And all what? In front of a chas and kala, in front of a bride and a groom. Marriage elicits this type of beyond supra-rational connection. And that's what Purim does. It counters an entire year of folly. We live in a world, as I said, where we're constantly making mistakes based on the blindness, based on the darkness. So one day a year we're told, break through, break out, experience holy madness, and that will repair and challenge unholy madness. So the blindness that we experience throughout the year, on Purim comes to say, you know what? Let's also do something that's beyond logic. But instead of lower than logic, instead of that blindness that allows us to hurt each other, let's go with the blindness that we love each other unconditionally, even if it doesn't make sense. Even if you can't figure out a reason for it. So Purim is that power of supra-rational commitment. And if you think about it, logic is critical in our lives. It's like a machine. It processes information. It crunches data. It helps us understand things. But commitment, passion, love, all those forces that require a certain unconditionality, logic can argue, hey, why risk it? Always keep a back door open. Don't take extra risks. Don't commit. Commit conditionally. But there's a force in our soul that is connected to the essence of reality that experiences certainty. I'm certain. And certainty comes from a place that's super-rational. What you want to have is go through the knowledge process, the steps of knowledge and exploration and research. But then you come to a point where you have to take a leap into a mad place. A mad meaning beyond logic. So we have what's lower than logic, and we have what is beyond logic. And this is the shtus del umazeh, the folly, the madness of the negative side, is counteracted by the madness, the holy madness, that leads us to places that are beyond that we can reach in any rational and structured way. So we're talking about how we get beyond structure. And that's what Purim is about. How to get beyond structure. And to give an example, music is the example I always use because it so captures the idea. Music, on one hand, is very structured. It's very structured. It's based on a structure of musical notes. You cannot add or subtract to those notes. And yet, what happens when you listen to music? Is it the sum of the parts? Is it a sum total of the notes? Do the notes even describe, when you look at notes on paper, or someone's playing them, do they even capture an iota of what music can do to a soul? How it lifts us up to another place? How it transports us transports us to another reality? Because music, though it's built by structure, ultimately reaches a place that's beyond structure. It touches a place in us that we can't call structured. And that's the ultimate goal. To fuse the structure of existence with that which is beyond. That has always been a challenge by philosophers and thinkers and mystics. Because they always argued, when you want to experience reality, you have to let go of the material structure. Stop thinking in structured ways. Stop thinking in terms of mathematical equations. Allow the intuition. Allow that sense of intimacy. Allow a sense of supra-cognitive, supra-sensory experience to manifest. Don't allow your structures, your senses, all the other limited forms of perception to control or to inhibit your ability to experience the free spirit. But how do you connect that to the structure of existence? So some argue, listen, you have to give up the structure. You have to learn how the structure is meaningless. Others, on the other hand, are controlled by the structure. Judaism teaches, quoting the words from Ibn Gabbai of Avedus HaKodesh, it says the following: just like God has the power to create the infinite, He has the power to create the finite. Because if He didn't, that would be missing. That would be showed as a failing in His completion, in His perfection. So the divine is neither structure nor beyond structure, and therefore can create both. And our mission is to fuse the two of them, to use the structure of existence and reach places that is beyond the structure. And that, of course, requires an interface. So most of the year we're involved in the structures of things. And at Purim we're said, break out. Just like the darkness suddenly was transformed to light, you too break the darkness of the folly, the madness, darkness of madness, darkness of insane behavior, a behavior that ignores the deeper realities that connect us all and becomes self-absorbed. Even if your mind understands otherwise, break that and transform that. Use that as a springboard to catapult you into a holy madness, into a madness which is beyond structure, beyond existence. And that's what Purim, that's what we celebrate on Purim. So in practical terms, this has many applications. A few of them are simply in our own lives. Do you have a commitment? Do you have a passion that you're ready to go all the way for? And forget about detractors and people who argue and say, don't take any chances, and why would you risk yourself? When it comes to perhaps business and regular social relations, there is structure, there are rules of engagement, there's give and take and so on. But when it comes to the passions of the soul, the free spirit, there one should be able to completely soar. And that's what Purim comes to teach us. So to find something in our lives that we can soar, we can fly, we can get out of the structure. A bird needs a nest for its comfort, for its home, for its security. But once it has that nest for security, it can fly to great places. The same is with us. We grow up hopefully in healthy homes, nurtured, taken care of, in order to one day be able to fly. And you need to be able to have both a nest and the ability to soar, all at the same time. That's our challenge. And on a practical level, that means on Purim, which is tonight, tomorrow, we have the opportunity to connect to that deeper place, the Geirel Shebeneshama, the place in the soul that's beyond awareness, beyond knowledge, lo yada, but bring it back into the structure of existence. Not just go there and remain there, to bring it back into the structures, into the world of knowledge, into the things we discern and the boundaries of reality. And in those boundaries to experience that which is boundless, which is why the celebration of Purim is one of complete joy. Adlayad, joy, unbounded, unbridled joy that allows us to connect to that deeper place. Now, one of the key things in the story of Purim you find, as I mentioned before, Haman and Mordechai. So you find throughout the Megillah, the way Mordechai is referred to, there are different names for a Jew. So there's Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yaakov, the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, the children of Jacob, Yeshurun. There are many names. In the Megillah, the name used for Mordechai and for the Jews is Yehudi. Mordechai HaYehudi. Yehudim. Which really comes from, it means Jew, but it also comes from the word Yehuda, originating from Yehuda. Yehuda was the fourth tribe. And the word Yehuda means to acknowledge. Like when we say, Moda'ani lefanecha, I acknowledge before you for returning my soul. Modim, acknowledgement. Humility and acknowledgement. Now in the Megillah you find the story. What happened? Haman, who became second in command, definitely rose in the ranks, had Achashverosh decree that everybody has to bow to Haman. Everybody would bow to him except Mordechai. And Mordechai would not bow and would not kneel to him, which of course infuriated Haman. And this is one of the reasons that incited him to go ahead and pass the decree to kill all the Jewish people. But what was it that really bothered him? And what was the power of this not kneeling and bowing? It said Haman had around his neck, he had not a crucifix, but a type of avodah zarah, a form of idolatry. And Mordechai didn't want to bow to the idolatry, but he also didn't want to bow to Haman. Jews don't bow. They've never bowed to man-made creatures or to men. They bow only to God. And Haman, that's what infuriated him. He wanted you to worship me. And this brings us back to the structure and lack of and beyond structure. Haidah, acknowledging something, kabbalatol, to accept it, to accept the yoke of God, God's will, is not a rational thing. There is part of the Torah that's rational. We study the Torah, we understand God's mind, we understand the God's plan, we can understand ourselves, each other. That's the structure of existence. But then there's a way of experiencing beyond structure, and that's through just acknowledgement, through faith, through trust. These are not tangible things. You could say when God provides for us food, drink, air to breathe, other blessings, livelihood. So it makes sense. Just like someone does a favor for you, gives you a gift, helps you survive, you say thank you, or you give them a gift in return. But then there's a relationship with God that's not based on structure, not based on the logic and the normal common sense of our being thankful and acknowledging the gifts given to us. There's an experience where we experience the divine beyond logic, where we just acknowledge, Haidah Yehudi. And that acknowledgement allows us to touch the divine itself, which structure could never allow us to touch. Great analogy for this is the one from the Baal Shem Tov. Tfil la'ani ki yatif. That he speaks about the prayer of a pauper, and his soul goes out speaking to God. So he asks the question, why pauper? The Baal Shem Tov. When you're speaking to God, your heart is pouring out to God Himself. Why pauper? And he gives a beautiful analogy. Two people were invited to see a king. One was a wise, literate, educated aristocrat. The other was an illiterate peasant. It comes the turn of the literate educated. He cannot wait for the day to get an appointment with the king. Oh, he never saw such a great palace. He always saw it from a distance. But because he appreciated so much of the finery of life and the etiquette of existence, so when he came into the palace, he was completely overwhelmed. He was taken, mesmerized by the sight. He saw the beautiful art on the walls, the library, the musical collections, the jewels, the valuables. And he said, never saw anything like this. And being the wiser he was, the more he appreciated it. He became so mesmerized that he missed his appointment. Yep. Then came the illiterate peasant. Not appreciating any of this, he walked right through all the outer chambers of the palace, went all the way into the antechamber, the inner chamber of the king, and poured out his soul to God, to the king. Give me everything. Give me the knowledge to appreciate all of this. The Baal Shem Tov says, when you stand before the divine essence, before the divine, before God, the first thing is suspend your literacy. This is not advocating illiteracy. It's advocating that which is beyond the mind. And when you do that, then you can experience something which is far beyond all the structures. So that's a way of experiencing that which is beyond. That is a form of madness. Now, not madness in the usual sense of the word, but it's madness, it's beyond the rational. It's a connection to something that put the structure there in the first place. So the wise man, the literate one, connects to the structure, and he misses his appointment with God Himself. And the one that is not so seduced by his senses, by the structure and the beauty of it, he goes straight to the king, to God Himself, and asks for everything, including, give me the wisdom to appreciate all these gifts, all this entire structure. So here you have an example how each of us, in our Yehudi state, in a simplistic, where we accept a certain responsibility that helps others, not just ourselves, that is a reflection of the Purim energy that is beyond any type of structure. So, my friends, the key thing here is on a Purim like this, every Purim is to be mad, but healthy madness. Not mad as in anger, by the way. Madness, healthy dancing, celebrating, offering things to people you wouldn't offer in a regular day, It's not just a regular structure, and you say, okay, this is a class system, this person is a president, this person is a vice president, people have their hierarchy. But Purim is a day that's an equalizer of men, women, and children. To unite together, unite together to challenge, to withstand any challenge and any force of darkness. And we have the power to actually transform the darkness into light in these days of Purim and Shushan Purim. So, my friends, the key thing is to let go. Let go of some of your structures. Go and dance. Go and celebrate. Do something crazy. But something crazy in a good way. Go for it all the way. Not just the rational planning A, B, C, D. Go for it all the way. Elevate our structure to that which is beyond structure. Because at the end of the day, in the divine picture, the structure is exactly an extension of beyond structure. It's an extension that we can elevate, we can reveal and redeem. So this is what Purim is about, in one sense of the word, Adala Yada, to the point that we cannot know the difference. Not advocating, God forbid, ignorance. On the contrary, advocating that which is beyond intelligence. Advocating something that really takes on a whole life of itself. The ability to reach that which is beyond us. And that is Yehuda. That is the idea of Yehuda that is acknowledges, Kabbalat all. Just the acceptance of something beyond us gives us power that even that which we have, which we contain and which we own, is also elevated to a completely other level. So, Purim. Purim is a time of celebration, it's a time of unity, it's a time of joining together in a festive meal, of Shloach Manos, sending gifts of food to each other, giving poor people some alms, a few coins. And all this is a celebration of darkness to light. That's why it's all done with such intensity and with so much commitment. So I wish upon everybody that we should appreciate and understand the power of our own madness. And of course, obviously, I don't want this to be misunderstood. This doesn't mean a license to just become mad and crazy and all that. It's a madness that leads you to change the world. That type of absolute commitment and saying, if I'm still here, it means there's something I can do to help make this world a better place. So there's, to all of you out there that understand this and appreciate this idea, this is the bottom line of what Purim is all about. The power that we have to change the status quo. But you can never change the status quo while you're in it. You have to bring in a madness, an insanity, a power that is crazy, but a healthy crazy. Healthy crazy meaning is beyond the structure, but works with the structure. Healthy crazy means that it finds solutions outside of the system. As Einstein said, to really appreciate a system, you have to be able to go outside of it. So going outside of the system, that allows us to see the system in a new way, and to implement and to transform it and elevate structure to that which is beyond structure. So there you have the take on the idea of holy madness, the take of the power of doing something that's super rational, and how that can actually transform your life and transform our lives. And it's a beautiful, beautiful idea, beautiful concept, one that I've no doubt that if we all apply ourselves to, can actually make major impact. I foresee that one day we'll have a bunch of little men, or just a bunch of little creatures, whose role is to document each of these levels of structure, and at the same time teach us how to get from the structure to beyond structure. So it's all about looking into ourselves and realizing that we, as I stated at the beginning of this discussion, we are people of structure, but there's something deeper, and we need to learn how to bridge the two. And when you do that, it's a beautiful, beautiful concept. It's a beautiful power to be able to achieve such levels. So each of us has to do it, of course, relative to the way we are, but we all have that ability, that power to be able to be mad, holy madness, a holy madness that goes beyond any type of structure. They say that Baal Shem Tov once was praying for a child that was very ill, and everyone had given up on him. And he reached out to 10 tzaddikim, Nistarim, hidden tzaddiks, and they got together, and the prayer went up to heaven, but Baal Shem Tov sensed it wasn't going to work. So finally, he went What he did was he went to the edge of the forest where only the Baal Shem Tov knew how to go, and knocked somewhere and came to a certain place. And bottom line is he came back with 10 thieves. Okay, and they sit and they begin to pray, and afterwards someone asked, and it worked. The child was healed. So afterwards they asked the Baal Shem Tov, why is it that when he brought 10 Chidin Sadikim, great people, it didn't work? When you have 10 criminals, 10 thieves, 10 burglars, it did work. So he said, I saw all the gates in heaven were locked, and I needed someone to break in. This is holy madness. This is taking experience in our lives, maybe negative experiences, like v'napachu, transforming it, negative experiences, and recognizing that we have the power to transform it to something that's far greater and far higher. So we all have ways that we break out of structure, and that's when we're able to really achieve real miracles, both for ourselves and for others. It's something that each of us is capable of. Each of us has the power of it, and especially on Purim, we're given the strength to do so. So I want to conclude by wishing everyone again a very, very happy Purim, a Purim that you should all celebrate, not just on this day, but an entire year, in our entire lifetimes, one with joy, one with pleasure, one with celebration and unity, and recognize that at the end of the day, everything is all part of an integral unity. Purim, by us being unified with each other, can actually lead that, help usher in that type of state, that type of life experience, and we should all merit going from Purim straight into Passover, the month of redemption. Redemption leads to redemption, redemption breeds redemption, that we can finally, once and for all, discover how structure helps us transcend structure, and then finally bring that message to everyone we can reach. I thank you so much. It was an unbelievable opportunity to be able to speak to you on Purim. Purim is the great celebration. Please enjoy your holiday in every possible way. Shalach Manos, the sending of food gifts, the gifts to the poor, the giving of money into charity, and all the other customs that we celebrate on Purim. Let the spirit of Purim, its unity, its uniting factor, help us all overcome any type of divisiveness, any type of differences, and we can finally discover that integral unity that lies within all the diversity of existence. This is what Purim is all about. It's an honor to be sharing with you a few words this Purim Eve. Hopefully everybody will celebrate tomorrow in the fullest possible way, and everyone should have a very, very powerful experience on this Purim, and an experience that will transform the entire year and your entire life, from a place of yogin, from less painful, more painful, to a point of simcha, of great joy and unlimited joy. Happy Purim, everyone. Please enjoy, and I shall see you next Wednesday night, same time, same place. And it's a great honor to be part of this experience, especially on this special day of Yom Kippur, of Purim, which is beyond any type of level of rational, the super-rational, that we then transform and transmit into all the details of our lives. So happy Purim, everyone. Celebrate well with your families, with your loved ones, and may we merit together to experience all the ultimate unity of all our people in the entire world, this one big field of energy that at the same time manifests in every part of our structures. Thank you, and a happy Purim.